Alright, so we're gonna start with the respiratory system. So, that's all we're gonna do.
I'll send it to everybody tonight.
It is the respiratory system.
Okay, so we're gonna
the
start with
respiratory system
we're
is
gonna
divided into the upper airways
and the lower airways.
and the lower airways.
The upper airway contains in the nose, the nasopharynx, on the mouth towards throat, the oropharynx.
Which is an alternate name for
the throat.
The throat.
Now, moving forwards, the connection point between those two is the laryngopharynx.
All right.
Moving down, you're gonna have the epiglottis, which is a leaf-like shape thing whose purpose is to block anything, any food or liquid that might go towards the larynx.
Or the trachea.
Or the trachea. Because the larynx is extremely sensitive to any food and liquid, and thus when something gets to it, it'll make you cough instantaneously, very strong.
It'll make a violent cough or a violent spasm of the vocal cords.
Of the vocal cords. Now, moving forth,
That
down
was the upper airways. Now,
Airways.
lower airways.
No. But don't forget to say that the upper airways ends at the epiglottis.
Epiglottis.
Yes.
I thought it was the larynx that was the halfway point.
No.
The larynx is a halfway point.
Oh, okay, but it's a part of lower.
The larynx is not part of the
Upper.
For
Got
the,
it.
airways.
For the purposes of the exam, larynx is in the lower airway. So the lower airway starts with the larynx, which contains on the top, the thyroid cartilage or Adam's apple. Moving down, the thyroid cricoid membrane. Moving down, the cricoid cartilage. In between, like posterior to all of those, is the vocal cords. Okay, now moving down, you're now in the trachea. The trachea keeps going all the way down until you meet carina, and carina is gonna bifurcate. Remember the word bifurcate for the exam, which means splits into two stem bronchi. Those stem bronchi are then going to break down into bronchioles, and those bronchioles
Let's
are gonna
talk about the stem bronchi. The stem bronchi, they subdivide into
bronchioles.
They subdivide into 3 bronchi on the right side that
Three bronchi
each go into one of the lobes on the right
The
lobe.
stem bronchi is the stem bronchi.
It's the main bronchi.
It's the main thing where carina bifurcates them.
And then it's subdivided
That sounds
into
like
three
a sex position, yeah.
three
That sounds like a sex position.
smaller
Carina
bronchi.
bifurcate me.
And then these bronchi.
So carina goes ahead and bifurcates the motherfuckers, so they go into the lungs and they become the bronchi. On the right side, you have 3 bronchi and 3 lobes.
Mhm.
Or I like saying superior. Can I just?
No, the name is upper.
Upper lobe, middle lobe, lower lobe. On the left side, you have 2 bronchi.
Mhm.
For one for each lobe. So you're gonna have the upper lobe and the lower lobe.
Yes.
Outside of them, no. Before that, those bronchi go into the alveoli or
the bronchi now turns into
bronchioles. But the bronchi turns into bronchioles. The bronchi turn into bronchioles, which then get to the alveoli.
which we have around 700 million.
Which will have 700 million. Now, another name for alveoli is grape-like, sac-like, grape sac-like, like that's
Grape sacs.
Grape.
That's all alveoli. So you're gonna have that. Now, moving outside of the lung. The lung is not muscle; it's just tissue. So allows it. In order to allow it to expand and contract. So outside of the lung, you're gonna have the covering. The main covering of the lung is the visceral pleura. Next, you're gonna have the pleura, the potential space or
Dead space.
Potential space or
Pleural space.
pleural space. Outside of moving forth, you're gonna have the parietal pleura, parietal perimeter,
Parietal perimeter lines,
It's around it, right?
which lines
the thoracic cavity.
the chest wall.
chest
Right.
wall. So now, inside the lungs, you have spaces without the space inside the lung that does not have alveoli is called dead space. It is always full with gas. It is.
The airspace is not the space inside the lungs, but the space outside the lungs, like the tube outside the lungs that carry oxygen from the environment until it reaches the lungs.
The dead space.
That's called dead space.
What
if
about
it's inside the lungs, it is not dead space. That's your lung capacity. It is inside your lungs. Now, inside your lungs, you have the residual volume, which is basically when you exhale.
Residual volume. Yeah.
The residual volume when you exhale, basically, it doesn't matter how much you exhale.
Same amount all the time.
Yeah.
You'll reach a point when you feel like you can't go anymore, but there's still
There's
air.
still some more oxygen. How much percent?
Nah, it's not oxygen. There's still air
Still air.
in your lungs, whose single purpose is to prevent your lungs from collapsing.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
What is that gas called? That air.
Residual volume.
Residual volume inside your lungs is what prevents them from collapsing.
Okay.
The air outside your lungs is the dead space.
Yes.
Okay. Now.
Why is it called dead space? I'm sorry.
It's called dead space because
There's no space.
it doesn't the air even when you inhale. There is still air within your mouth, within.
Oh, but there's
Basically, this air that is there does not contribute to respiration. Basically, does not take part in the exchange of gases.
It's just taking up space.
Basically, it's just there. Now, talking about this, we talked about the larynx and subdivisions, but the trachea is form of ring, cartilaginous rings,
Cartilaginous rings. This
whose
cartilage
purpose
is to hold the trachea in place.
is to hold the trachea in place. Not only that, the cartilaginous rings are there to prevent the trachea from collapsing when you're inhaling or exhaling.
Mm-hmm. Now, those same cartilaginous rings are not complete rings. Even though they're called that, they're not complete. On the back of them, they're open rings to allow the esophagus to move, like to allow food to pass freely on the esophagus.
Yes.
Now, where are we going now? We're past the lower airway now. Now we're to the respiratory muscles.
Respiratory muscles. So what are the respiratory muscles?
The accessory muscles of the neck.
Before
I like going from top to bottom.
I think you should go from top to bottom.
I like going from top to
Alright, so go talk to
Yeah.
bottom.
So you have the accessory muscles of the neck when you breathe in. Then you have the thoracic muscles.
Intercostal.
Intercostal muscle.
When you breathe in, are you gonna talk about
And then you have your diaphragm.
which?
You also all the respiratory muscles. You have the accessory muscles of the neck.
Uh-huh.
You have the intercostal muscles.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes you have the pectoral muscles, and then you have the accessory muscles of the abdomen.
And the accessory muscles of the abdomen. But those are only shown on infants, on childs.
No. Everybody has them.
Everybody has them. It's true, but they're more children use them more.
Children use them more.
Because we'll get to that.
We'll get to that when we get to that.
But now moving into that was all. So everything we just did was ventilation. It was not respiration. That was ventilation.
Oh, that was all ventilation?
That was all ventilation.
We'll get to that too.
Ventilation is just moving air into
From the environment
to your
inside
lungs.
the lungs.
Now we're gonna go into respiration.
No.
You say
We're
the
gonna go to
respiratory
process. Respiratory process.
Great.
I think that fell.
That's all good. We'll just put it right here.
Fuck that shit.
You got too excited about that.
Too violent. Wait, how'd you put it in the first place? Cut.
Just leave it the way it
Alright,
was.
fine.
Fine.
It can't stay. It can't stay.
They cannot stay because I saw something fall when you pulled it down.
Yeah. Me too.
I got an idea here. Just put a little sit here.
Ah, yeah.
Alright, so that works.
It's not gonna show in your thing.
It doesn't see from there anyway, it's too far.
Alright, so now we have the respiratory process. Now respiration and how it works. Basically, oxygen contents of the air coming in and out. That's what respiration is.
Alright, so basically, we already covered all this.
Now, moving on
Just show it to the camera, sorry.
So respiration is when once the air oxygenated, like oxygen gets into 20, which you inhale 21% of oxygen, the rest is nitrogen.
Alright, so basically, first question to be asked, what is the purpose of the respiratory system?
To provide
Oxygen
oxygen to the body.
and to take out carbon dioxide.
And
is
to
the main,
detoxify
And to eliminate carbon dioxide. That is very important
most important.
because, as later it states here, the purpose would mostly be to eliminate carbon dioxide than it is to acquire oxygen.
Oxygen, yes.
Now, there are two separate interdependent processes by which we breathe. They are called ventilation and respiration. Ventilation is the movement of air from the environment to the lungs. And respiration is
the diffusion of oxygen from the alveoli into the red blood cells.
in other words, the exchange of gases, which are oxygen and carbon dioxide.
Blood cells give the alveoli carbon dioxide, the alveoli give them oxygen.
Now, this exchange of gases is done by
You're blocking them.
No, that's cool.
the exchange of gases is done by the process of
Process or
Diffusion.
by the process of diffusion.
higher to lower.
Diffusion is
Moving from
higher to concentration to lower.
movement of substance from a high concentration to a lower concentration. So that is that.
No.
So now, processes, respiratory processes. We said there were two. Now, ventilation and respiration. Now we need to know that ventilation is,
Just moving air from the environment
Outside.
into the lungs.
in other words, it is an active
An
process.
active process.
Basically, it is an active process. Why? Because the lungs don't have muscles. They can't contract and relax by themselves. Now, it's an active because for ventilation to occur, the respiratory muscles need to contract. Basically, what happened? The diaphragm contract, it goes down,
down, and then
the intercostal muscles go out and upward, or up and out. Like
and out.
depending on how you want to say it. So because the muscles have to contract, it requires energy, which is
And the accessory
Active.
muscles of the neck open more the larynx.
like the airways, like
laryngeal pharynx.
I don't know.
allowing air to
More
Come.
air to come in.
now. Respiration, on the other hand, is a passive process because it doesn't require you to do anything because the muscles are already contracted.
Loss of
All
the
they
universe.
need to do is relax.
Relax and come in.
When
The laws of the universe say that things always move from higher concentration to lower concentration. You see that in bio, you see that in chem, you see that in physics.
and chemistry, I think that process is called entropy.
And
No. That's not entropy. Entropy is chaos.
That's a whole nother story.
but not
No.
confuse them. Move
Alright.
on.
So basically,
Oh, is that your phone, dude? Yeah.
nah, don't worry about it. It's fine.
I'm worried.
So
Go ahead,
then,
keep going.
All right, so yeah, so basically, how does when the muscles contract, it pulls it, but that's why the pleural space is called a potential space, because when the muscle contract, the walls don't really separate, but the walls of the muscle pull the membrane of the lung, making it expand. When it expands, it sucks air in. Now, when the muscles relax, it compresses the lungs,
Presses back.
forces the air to go from the alveoli out through the mouth and nose, like depending on how you breathe.
And then the intercostal muscles come down. And
Yeah,
in.
they come down. Like basically, they reduce the surface area, not the surface area, the volume of the lungs, making it go. No. Where you go?
Well,
Oh, the sensors. The effects of
All right, so chemical control of breathing. So
Okay,
basically, what are the effects of the accumulation of carbon dioxide in the
pH.
Yes.
it makes it
Goes
makes
up.
the blood more acidic, and it makes the cerebrospinal fluid more acidic.
Yes,
Yes.
basically what happens when that happens?
I said in the video. I forgot.
When that happens, when the pH of the blood changes, the sensors in the brainstem mainly,
In the brain.
Medulla oblongata.
sends the signal to
The
the
Phrenic-
diaphragm
phrenic nerves.
No,
via
no,
the
no.
phrenic nerve.
the what nerve?
The phrenic nerve.
Phrenic.
The phrenic nerve.
Yeah.
To the diaphragm.
Phrenic.
So basically, the brain uses the phrenic nerve to send a signal to the diaphragm, telling that nigga.
That's the
Nigga,
primary
You
one,
need to
right?
contract like no,
Yes, you need to contract.
and let that shit in. Like,
As Nuki said, papi, wake up.
Yeah, so basically,
and that gives you more oxygen. And
That gives you oxygen.
Process that maintains homeostasis of oxygen and carbon dioxide. in
basically,
your-
that is one reason why you cannot hold your breath indefinitely.
Exactly.
At some point, you'll be like,
Yeah,
You
like
have
today. Like today when my legs started. I don't know why my legs started.
yeah.
So all right, so where do we have to know the sensors?
Yeah,
Where
so,
the sensors are located?
yes, basically, now there are oxygen sensors.
One in the brainstem,
Mm-hmm.
and back in the aorta. Is the aorta the vena cava? He mentioned.
Vena cava? No, inferior
Mhm.
vena cava?
No, in the aorta. In the aorta.
And the aorta, and
And so brainstem, aorta,
There's an
and
aorta and
the neck, the larynx,
it's an art. There are
Arterial-
arteries,
carotid artery,
carotid arteries.
carotid? Really?
Yes,
the aorta, carotid
never heard
arteries.
that.
No, but there's another place.
it's
where
the aorta, the brainstem, the aorta, and the carotid arteries.
No, there's. Are you sure? There's no more sensors. Where's the sensors part?
There are areas in the brain, the wall of the areas in the brain, the walls of the aorta, and the carotid arteries has.
Oxygen. Okay.
I got you. Don't worry, I got you. I will not lead you astray.
All right. So we have walls. The walls of the aorta, carotid arteries, and brainstem.
Yes.
Cool. Or
Now-
if you don't see brainstem, you go for medulla
Medulla
oblongata.
If
oblongata.
you don't see brainstem, go for medulla oblongata. You
Remember
know,
that.
one of the main role of the medulla oblongata is to initiate inspiration. Basically, initiates
I like
the process.
Initiates the process.
Initiate inspiration.
All right.
Initiates
So
inspiration.
now, sometimes our systems is damaged.
Oh yeah.
So
Like
the
when is
secondary
it? When is
process.
our system damaged?
So basically, when the lungs cannot absorb as much oxygen, basically we become low in oxygen content. The body has a backup system called
The hypoxic nerve.
Hypoxic.
Hypoxic
hypoxic drive. Hypoxic drive, whose role is
The
to
backup
serve
drive.
as a backup to help end the process of respiration.
Now, there's other sensors that
Typical.
keep everything in check.
From
What prevents? There's another sense or reflex that prevents you from bursting your
Heuristic barrel?
yeah.
I forgot what it's called.
That is the sense that is the reflex that prevents your lungs from exploding from air, basically.
Yes,
What's
from
it called?
From having intaking too much
Harry
or
Bird
living too
reflex.
Harry Bird reflex.
Yes.
little. What?
Herring Brewer.
Herring-Brewer reflex. Alright, where are we going now? Go ahead.
Going up on a Tuesday.
Oh my god. I like that song.
Is there another page that says this one?
No.
This is the last page. Alright, so now ventilation
Ventilation.
We have-
Ventilation, you know, it is the process of.
of air moving from
Air
the
moving from the
environment.
outside to the inside of the lungs.
So now to the inside of the lung.
Now we have
our
lung
lungs have a.
500 milliliter lung
No.
capacity.
That is not our lung capacity.
What? Really?
No.
That
not
is
five-
what you're describing. 500 milliliter is called the.
That's a tidal problem.
Tidal wave? Oh,
wave.
tidal wave.
No, it's not tidal wave. It's tidal volume.
Tidal volume. Fine.
Our lung capacity, I think it's either around 2,000 milliliters. No, It's around 6,000 milliliters. Basically, 3 2-liter candles,
Jesus Christ.
2-liter bottles of soda.
It's way more than 500.
It's 2,000 milliliters.
Oh, 2,000 milliliters
Oh.
is the lung capacity.
Lung capacity is
But we
2,000
only
milliliters.
inhale 500 milliliters at one given time.
So a tidal volume is the amount of air you inhale
And
when you're like resting, not doing any exercise.
But doesn't it depend on
is your
whose
average
lungs
respiration rate?
sizes?
Is your average inhalation rate?
Really?
Basically.
Everybody?
Is your average?
Yeah, like
Like
in
you-
adults, like some people might be like, let's say Shaquille O'Neal or fucking Yao
Yeah,
Ming,
like
who's like
5,000 or
huge.
They
Like
may have more.
their lung capacity, by proportion, is bigger than ours.
Yeah.
So basically, they might inhale more.
But the average is 500
Yes,
milliliters.
the average
For
adult,
purposes of the exam, is 500 milliliters. Like, that's
Yes.
all you need to care
it's
about.
500 milliliters.
Yeah,
Now,
that's all we need to know. No,
So-
inspiratory reserve,
no confusion.
Inspiratory reserve.
what is it?
Oh,
Oh my god.
no.
I've never heard that.
Inspiratory reserve is the amount of air, the volume of air you can inhale,
At one time?
the total volume of air you can inhale after taking a normal breath.
Oh, okay.
Whereas the expiratory reserve is
How much you can take up?
exactly how much air you can
Take
clear out of your
Because we
lungs.
still
Like
have some inside,
Okay.
right?
now, you come down to the
The residual volume.
residual volume,
Oh, that's what it was.
which is
The
How much-
amount of air that it's left inside the lungs to prevent them from collapsing.
exactly
And outside of the lungs, you have your dead space,
now
or
dead space. Basically,
which is in the plural space, isn't it?
no.
Okay.
Dead space would be the nasopharynx,
That's
laryngopharynx,
Laryngeal
Oh my
pharynx.
god.
the trachea,
The bronchi.
the bronchi. As the bronchi, the part of the bronchi that is not inside the lungs.
So everything outside the lungs,
Everything, all
except for the plural space.
every air passage outside of the lung, essentially.
Is dead space?
Every air
It is
passage.
this.
Remember, air passage. The
Air
plural
passages.
space is not an air passage.
The plural space is called a potential space.
Potential.
Why is it called a potential
Why is that?
space?
Because it's technically not
It goes
a
in there?
space, but
It technically does. It's not a space.
but it has the potential to be a space.
Basically, it only becomes a space.
If it expands?
No, it doesn't expand. The only time,
It becomes a space if your lung collapses.
no. If your lung collapses, it's still not a space. What happened? If you have a puncture of the lungs and fluid starts
To sip in.
to sip in, or air starts to sip in, so now it just goes inside, because there is a vacuum. Like in between the two pleural membranes, there is a vacuum that keeps them tightly closed, like tightly close to each other. That's why when your muscles contract, they contract and they pull the lung, because there is a vacuum. Now, if it's punctured, that vacuum sucks in either air or liquid.
So the potential space is called the potential space, and only becomes a space if it's punctured.
Punctured?
Yes.
Or wounded?
And in which case, either liquid or air will start to sip in.
If it's punctured, what happens? There is a very high chance that your lungs will collapse, because the vacuum will start collecting liquid. Now, the residual volume that's in your lungs, instead of your lungs staying close to the chest wall, the liquid will slowly sip in and just push it out more and more, and then you'll have a collapsed lung.
Wow. I didn't even know about this till now.
Now we have the minute
Well, we
volume.
didn't need to go and it like
No, minute
deep.
volume is
But
the amount of tidal volume you do in a minute.
the amount of air you inhale in a
And then
minute, essentially. Let me see if I'm.
Minus
Yeah, there's
the
an
dead
equation
space.
for it.
Do we have to know it?
Yeah,
Yeah. What is it?
minute volume.
Oh, fuck. It says right here it is the amount of air that
Yeah, I
moves
haven't
in
even
and out
finished
of
the
the
whole
lungs
bag.
in 1 minute minus
Yeah.
the dead space.
Yes.
Amount of air that moves in and out minus that space. Boom. That's
So
it.
basically, respiratory rate times tidal volume.
Respiratory rate time.
Now we're getting into the hard stuff.
We're not already there?
No.
What do you mean? Oh,
Oh.
so
Then
now,
the characteristics of normal breathing. First, let's start
Oh, yeah,
by
memorization.
let's start by going with the numbers. So normal breathing in an adult is
15 to 20.
between 12 to 20.
so basically, you want to skip here. Normal respiratory rates.
So normal respiratory rates
15
are
to 20?
12 to 20 in an adult,
Oh, shit.
Children is
15 to 30 in a child,
Child.
25 to
25,
50 in an
50
infant,
in an infant.
25 to 30 what?
25 to 30,
Breaths per
25
minute.
to 50
Breath.
Per minute.
per minute.
And you gotta
25
remember
to
that.
50 breath.
And those numbers is the same thing.
And
You just gotta go
now,
less or more.
so now that we know what the rates of breathing, the characteristics of normal
normal
oh
breathing.
shit, I forgot the
normal
characters.
breathing.
I wrote it down though.
So we're gonna have you're gonna inhale and exhale like comfortably.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna see that movement of the thoracic part of your body going in and out. You're gonna see the diaphragm expanding, contracting normally,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're not gonna hear any interrupted sounds.
Yes.
Gonna be very fluid, very
Free of abnormal
calm.
sounds, normal chest
That
expansion,
is-
breathing takes minimal effort.
Yeah,
Minimal.
that is essentially it. Basically, normal breathing without like any.
Anything
Yeah.
bothering.
Any
Abnormal
efforts.
breathing consideration in infants and children.
You don't hear any abnormal
Wow.
noises. You have proper movement of the abdomen. You know when you breathe in,
Diminished
Yeah.
or absent breaths.
and then proper movement of the walls of the abdomen.
Okay. Now let's go for inadequate breathing parents. Labor breathing means you're forcing air in.
It hurts.
Basically, not necessarily forcing air in. Labored breathing can be forcing air in or forcing air out.
Oh.
Basically, it is when it requires you to put effort into breathing.
Oh
Yeah.
Like either like, let's say one type of labored breathing. When you're
Asthmatic.
asthmatic, or even
Bronchitis.
even more common, the common cold when your nose is stuffed, like
That's labor breathing.
that's labored breathing. Basically, it requires you, like sometimes it's
It's
so
not
bad
effortless, it's not
it makes your chest hurt.
It's not effortless, pretty much.
It's not effortless.
Pretty much like that. You start breathing through your mouth, which is what I.
Which is bad. I don't like breathing.
Now,
Next one.
then we go. What are the signs of abnormal breathing?
Oh, I had it in my book.
No, before that,
have it?
What
what is agonal gasp?
Well, the agonal gasp is
The last-
the last breath you take when your heart stops.
Oh shit.
They are very little.
your
They're not
brain's-
complete. They're not complete inhalations. They're just like very short, very like.
All right, so you said that they're the last breath you take when your heart stops. It is not necessarily. Basically, it is when your heart is not beating. You got that right.
Oh.
And your brain is still active. Basically, let's say you had a cardiac arrest, right? Basically, your heart stops, but there is still oxygen within your blood. That is, your brain is still fully stocked with oxygen. And then your brain, realizing that you're not breathing,
Nuki said that funny.
still like the brainstem stimulates the esophagus,
Papi.
and you like, like basically you're not breathing, but like the esophagus is just trying to contract. Like when that happens, if you're there on the spot, like
That
whatever,
hurts.
you can quickly ventilate to make sure, like try to if you have a what is called. If you can perform CPR,
Or
to
use
try
an
to
AED.
CPR to get
Or
the
the-
heart moving again.
AED.
what's AUD like? Yeah,
CPR.
AUD. So basically, to
What's
try to
AED?
the machine.
The
Electrical.
electrical
okay.
machine to activate.
Or use a defibrillator. That's what I was trying to
Is
say.
that automaticity? No. When they use
Automaticity.
the defibrillator?
No. Like basically, if you have an irregular heart rate, you can defibrillate the heart and make it resume its regular rhythm.
Okay. Now,
But that has nothing to do with this.
now we go into
Now.
abnormal respiratory
Yes, abnormal.
respiratory rates. Now, this one is extremely easy. If you memorize the normal respiratory rate,
It's just
anything
the opposite.
outside of it.
It's opposite pretty much.
In what is an abnormal respiratory rate in an adult? Anything below 12,
12. yeah.
anything above
More
30.
than 30.
Anything
20,
above 20.
Yes.
And then
Anything below 12,
15,
anything above 20. In a child, anything below 15,
more than
anything
30.
above 30. And an infant,
Less
anything
than
below
25,
25, anything
more than
above
50.
50.
Yes.
Now,
Now-
what are the characteristics of
So it's inadequate breathing patterns.
inadequate breathing patterns? Yeah. So, what are the physical, like the observable characteristics
Physical manifestations.
of in one of them is when you see one side of the chest
Outside.
like contract, like moving,
The other no.
and the other one not. So it's like you're
The
breathing.
It is called
I
Or
don't know.
seesaw.
one side of the chest moving.
Oh, the
It is called paradoxical movement.
Paradoxical. movement.
Paradoxical.
Paradoxical movement basically is when only one side of the chest is moving. Seesaw in children
From here to here.
basically
What is
This
is,
seesaw?
doesn't go up, but this does.
basically when you breathe in, it's like either the chest or like when you breathe in.
One thing stays.
The intercostal muscles don't move up.
When you're
Yeah.
breathing, when the child is breathing, basically it's mostly in children. The chest, when the chest comes out, the abdomen goes in, and then when the abdomen comes out, the chest goes in. Like it's
Switch back. Switch.
Yeah.
yeah. So that's a seesaw.
Well, that's the seesaw is when the chest comes in, the abdomen comes out. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
One.
This
Yeah.
doesn't
Another one is
When. Wow, no.
It's getting tiring now.
Oh, the tripod position.
Yes, the
When you
tripod
put yourself in
position.
the
Oh,
tripod
this one.
position.
We go like this.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Is there another one besides that?
No.
Seesaw, paradoxical, tripod.
all right. So basically, when you have cold, damp, or clammy skin, when you have pale or cyanide blue skin, like basically,
Yeah.
that
That's a
happens.
sign of lack of oxygen.
Yes.
That means
That's-
that it doesn't matter if your chest is moving normally. If you have the pale skin,
Abnormal
that,
breathing patterns.
that means that if you see that discoloration, you're not getting oxygen or
Yeah. You become cyanic,
cyanic
basically
or
blue.
blue skin. Cyanide
You can see it, especially in the lips. You see how the lips are like always pink?
Blue.
They turn blue.
They turn blue, like
Like blue.
they turn pale, like kind of like this blue.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
What is next? Is
And
that what else?
You think I
That's it.
No, that's more.
No, it's the last thing. It's
that's
the
all right. So
hardest.
now,
It's almost
That's the
circulatory.
hardest.
now I've not memorized this yet.
Yo, I have not memorized that either. That's
What is
that's what
No,
I'm
no, no.
saying.
But the thing is that
Everything's
I read, I
Just read it.
highlighted it.
I'm gonna send you guys this maybe on the private YouTube thing, like a link.
Yeah.
Tonight.
Yo, send that.
Tonight.
Okay.
Oh no, you want to say it first? Like just say it out loud.
Wait.
So you can just watch it.
Camila said to send it this.
I'll read it. Normal, special populations. That one? Which one did you not memorize?
Yo,
The last one.
hey,
What's that?
I know it's.
The differences in size and respiratory
just studying
systems in child and
crowds.
adults.
That's a good study session.
Where is that?
I like that.
Yeah.
Difference. Yeah, we should definitely do it like that. I'll just record it. And wait, where's it?
These guys not see.
Differences.
Not smart.
Can you show me?
It's discipline.
Which-
Study group.
Can you show me where it is?
Discipline.
What?
Differences. I'll read it out loud.
Total dedication towards.
No.
It's the difference in studying.
All right, last one. I'll just read it there. The anatomy of the respiratory system in children is proportionately smaller and less rigid than in an adult. A child's nose and mouth are much smaller than those of an adult. The larynx, cricoid cartilage, and trachea are smaller, softer, and more flexible as well. This makes the mechanics of breathing much more delicate. A child's pharynx is also smaller and less deeply curved. The tongue takes up proportionally more space in a child's mouth than in an adult's mouth. These anatomic differences are important for your assessment and treatment. For example, the smaller larynx of a child becomes obstructed more easily. The chest wall in children is softer. Therefore, children depend more heavily on the diaphragm for breathing. You will notice that a child's abdomen moves in and out considerably with each breath, especially in an infant. Infants younger than 1 month do not know how to breathe through the mouth. Smaller children also have proportionally larger heads compared with the rest of the body. This will affect the way you treat a suspected spinal injury. Therefore, as you assess and treat an infant or a child, you must carefully consider these differences.
Success!
Alright, here's everybody.
He's excited. I love it.
Success.
Success.
Thank you.
We'll come back to this everything
Nah, I'm
tomorrow.
taking
now.
this, yo.
Alright, I'm